Hi, I'm Jared Randolph, and today I'm going to be training on the Focus 4 hazards within construction industry. Today my objectives are I want to discuss the emphasis program. I'd like to survey the importance of safety in the workplace, survey each particular hazard, and discuss how hazards can be controlled for each area. Safety in the workplace is very important. Obviously, we have OSHA as the primary enforcement agency for maintaining a safe workplace. Some interesting statistics for you. Of the 4,379 workers that died in 2015 at the workplace or on the job site, roughly 930 of those were construction fatalities. Of those fatalities, there are four main hazard categories that the bulk of those fatalities fell under. Those being falls, struck by object, electrocution, or caught between or in. And those made the bulk of the fatalities within the construction industry. So the first one we're going to start with is falls. Falls were the primary category under which the majority of construction fatalities fell under. Roughly 38% of all fatalities within the construction industry were from falls. OSHA defines a fall as any fall to a surface below 6 feet or more. So the standard states that a fall 6 feet or more must be protected, and how that's protected is what we're going to talk about, the controls. So controlling falls, OSHA has basically three main systems that they use for controlling falls, either handrails, some sort of safety net, or a personal fall arrest system like a harness. The second category within OSHA's emphasis program for the Focus 4 is struck by object. And OSHA defines a struck by object incident as any incident where the primary cause of the injury or fatality was from that struck by object. A lot of struck by object incidents involve like heavy equipment or heavy machinery, and so a lot of the controls that they use or ways that we mitigate this hazard involve things like heavy equipment. There are a few administrative and PPE controls that are the primary ones that are used for controlling struck by object incidents. One of those being things simple as hard hats. Hard hats protect the head, obviously, from falling objects, which would fall under a struck by incident. Things like hard hats are one of those. And then also things like high-vis vests on big job sites where there's a lot of heavy equipment moving around. Getting the worker to wear anything that can make it easier for an equipment operator to see a worker that's on foot is something that can be used to prevent a struck by incident. One of the biggest things that's always taught when talking about struck by object accidents is body positioning and placement. As if I'm walking around a job site, I need to be sure that operators can see me, and if I have to, especially when you're walking in blind spots, behind them or areas of the machine where components of that machine itself will impede their view. You need to make sure that the operator sees you before you try to move around them, and that can mean making eye contact or waving. Many pieces of heavy equipment will have barricades that can be set up around them, like swing radiuses for cranes or excavators, and those are meant to prohibit people from walking into the swinging radius of that actual piece of equipment. Electrocutions is another big one. I think roughly 8.6 of all construction fatalities are from electrocution incidents, and OSHA defines an electrocution incident or electrocution itself as death from electrical shock. Oftentimes you hear the word electrocution misused. Someone might say that they got electrocuted, but electrocution, the definition means that you died from that electrical shock. So oftentimes, electrocutions occur from one of the smaller volts. It only takes a very small amount of voltage to actually stop a person's heart. So 110 volts, which is your basic, your household receptacle, 110 voltage is what kills several people because they don't respect it enough, for one thing. And it also, it has enough voltage to seize your muscles, to make you latch onto that voltage, but not enough to blow you back like a higher voltage might. So that's one of the issues that we come across with electrocutions, and probably one of the issues, or one of the reasons why there are so many electrocution fatalities in the construction industry. So there are several controls or ways to mitigate electrocution hazards. Within construction, the majority of our electrical exposure comes from our tools and our electrical cords, and maybe our generators. And so OSHA has implemented several standards or plans for kind of controlling these hazards. And one of the biggest things that you'll see on a construction site is guys will go around and they'll pull these ground prongs out of their plug-ins so that they can plug it in wherever they want, or so they don't quit tripping the breaker. And the reason that ground prong is on there is so that the breaker will trip, or that circuit will be interrupted, and that saves lives. A lot of times there are nicks or cuts in the wire on electrical cords or power tools, and so those are supposed to be removed or repaired, and oftentimes they're not, which is why there are so many issues. So the biggest hazards are generally with power cords and the tools on the cords on tools. So those are where we run into problems most often. And finally, the last one is caught in or between hazards, and these occur. They're similar in nature to struck by object, except for the primary the primary cause or the primary reason for the incident is that caught in or between instead of the struck by. These occur in what we know in construction as pinch points, and they oftentimes also involve equipment. So if you imagine the swinging bucket of an excavator, somebody's digging up against a wall, and somebody walks between that wall and that excavator, and the operator doesn't see and crushes him in between the wall. So that happens semi-often, and that's why we see so many caught in or between hazards. So avoiding pinch points, a lot of times pinch points around crane swing radiuses or excavator radiuses, things of that nature. And oftentimes the controls are very similar to those that we see in struck by incidents. High-vis clothing, but once again, it's mostly just body placement. There are barricades that can be set up around crane radiuses and excavator radiuses, but more than that, the worker, him or herself, needs to be aware of where they're at, of where they're placed, of where they are in regards to equipment and pinch points. So that's one of the things that we try to teach to our guys, is being aware of where they're at. And so that's the Focus 4 Emphasis program from OSHA. It's aimed at, decreasing those fatalities in those particular 4 areas. And so far, from what studies have come out, it seems to be working. So we hope that they have continued success. And as for safety professionals on the ground, we hope to have continued success as well. Thank you.